Hi, welcome to the Get Ready with God podcast. My name is Julie Taylor, and I am your host, and I am not God, obviously. I'm not an expert. I'm not even a scriptorian. I'm literally just a girl sitting in front of a microphone, hoping God is real. The Get Ready with God podcast is the daily devotional podcast to help you see divinity in every day. Something really exciting happened to me this morning, and I can't wait to tell you about it. I was out on a walk, and then suddenly, this has happened once before, okay? So it's not the first time, but it's always a thrill. What a thrill. I saw a weasel, okay? I'm not going to bury the lead. I saw a weasel this morning. And the thing about weasels is they're not super common. And I think it's thrilling when you see a weasel on your walk. And I've seen a weasel one other time in this similar area. So now I know that's where the weasels dwell. And I just think it's really thrilling to see a weasel. And the thing about this weasel is he was transitioning to white because weasels turn white in the winter. Not all weasels, but weasels in my area turn white in the winter. But their tails, the tip of their tails will stay black. So if you see like a white creature with a little black tail, you might be lucky enough to be watching a weasel. So seeing this weasel and his coat transitioning to white gave me hope that even though it's August, nature is preparing for the transition to fall. The weasel's not going to the salon and getting bleached out. He's following the laws of nature. And the weasel was turning white. The weasel was preparing for winter. The weasel was starting its transition to winter, which signifies that nature is starting its transition to fall. It's going to be a wild weasel fall, okay? Hot girl summer is over. We're moving on to wild weasel fall. And I could not be happier. So anyway, the weasel gave me hope, which is always fun to find hope. But the other thing that the weasel made me think of, the weasel that I saw on my walk this morning, I don't know if you have heard that I saw a weasel on my walk. The other thing that it made me think of is the weasels in transition, right? A lot of us are in a season of transition right now. It's back to school. This time of year, if you are a student or the parent of or spouse of a student or a teacher, it's just kind of a big transition for some of us. Not everyone, but some. But even if you don't relate to the back to school transition that we're in right now, you could be facing your own individual life transition, like a new job, an old job, a marriage, maybe you're having a baby. There's lots of reasons that you could be in a life transition. And then there's like the daily transitions, the small micro transitions that we do every day. Do you ever find yourself sitting in the car not wanting to go inside at your destination, whether it be work, home, or otherwise? You just want to sit in the car? Why do we sit in the car so long? We all transition throughout our day, every single day. And then we have these bigger individual transitions that we face just with our own circumstances. And then we also participate in cultural transitions like back to school, seasonal, things like that. And here's the thing about transitions. They require a lot of effort and energy. Transitions demand higher output of effort and energy. When I first started having kids go to school, I was blown away by the amount of emotional intensity the first few weeks after school started. And then it happened again in the summer, like the first few weeks of summer. It was like everyone was fighting more. The emotional intensity, it was crazy. And I mentioned it to my sister who's older and wiser than me. And she told me to always give myself 2 weeks of transition. She's like, when school starts or when summer starts, give yourself like a 2-week grace period to let everyone adapt to everything. I was so grateful she told me that because it just kind of set me up for success to adjust my expectations for higher levels of meltdowns, spirals, fights, all of those types of things. It's because everyone is being asked to increase their output of energy and effort because transitions demand that. So, yes, this is a nice thought to share on the podcast of give yourself some grace, give your kids some grace, give everyone some grace right now as we go through a cultural transition of back to school. But whatever you're facing right now in your own life, maybe give yourself a little bit of grace and recognize and validate the increased output that you are being asked to do. The reason I'm bringing it up here on this podcast is because so many of us are in transitions with our faith. Sure, that can sometimes look like officially leaving a religion. That can look like completely changing your belief system. That can be from you going from a believing in God to becoming an atheist. There's a lot of like really big transitions that a lot of us, I think, actually have navigated or are navigating. But there's also these little transitions in faith of just coming up against dissonance and exploring, what do I actually believe or what do I actually think? going through trying to form a relationship with God and feeling like God's not there, you're not as close as you want to be with God, or you're not as strong in your faith as you wish you were, or dealing with the heartbreak that can come from foundational shifts in faith. I think faith transition is one of those where, whether on a big scale or a small scale, we're kind of always fluidly transitioning through things. And it takes more effort to change than it does to maintain. Due to the laws of physics, I believe, an object put in motion will stay in motion. Putting the object in motion requires an output of energy, and then momentum takes over and helps you carry. So whatever change you're creating in your life, and that can be one reason why it's hard to electively engage in change, I think, is because it's electively engaging in increased output, which is hard and draining and demanding. But sometimes life doesn't give us a choice. Sometimes life demands transitions out of us. But I think most of us, in many ways, are going through little micro transitions every single day with our faith as we try to navigate this gray area. I will say that even though things are still, you've watched the roller coaster that is my faith. Even now on this podcast, you've listened where weeks have been like, man, why do I have to fight so hard to believe? And then other weeks I'm like, okay, this is okay. So I don't think it ever stops, but I will say overall, zoomed out, the effort and energy I have to spend on transitioning faith is much lower now than it used to be. There were years where it was so heavy and so intense and so all the time. And that's why I always advocate for taking breaks, giving yourself breaks, set it down for now, because it can be so consuming and so heavy and so hard. But I do think I'm closer now to more of a maintenance place with my faith, where I'm always trying to grow my faith and figure it out and shift it. And I think it's an evolving, alive thing. Faith is an organic being in my life. It's a living, breathing part of me that I don't think I just get to put in a corner and be like, oh, I think you're fine. Let's put you on a shelf. It's always going to be something. But the energy that I put into maintaining faith now is in a lot of ways lower than what it took to really shift things and really make these big transitions. Now I'm kind of down to more of like daily micro transitions for now. Who knows what season is next? But right now I'm in more of a season of like, there's constant daily micro transitions with faith and daily navigating and hard things and ups and downs. But overall, I'm more in a maintenance phase than a transitional phase with faith at the moment. And I know the difference. And so just recognize that transitions demand increased energy and output and effort, and give yourself a little bit of grace. And if you're in a place of faith transition, just expect it. Like my sister warned me, so I expect those transition periods to ask a little bit more of me, so I accommodate them accordingly. You can do that with these faith transitions as you're navigating things daily and then also on a bigger scale. So let's just waltz with the weasel into fall. Please bless, fall is coming. 100 degrees. I can't do it anymore. I actually can. I'm doing just fine. I'm just going to wear hoodies and stay in air conditioning. The parable of the weasel. I think that's what we'll call this episode. Anyways, all of this isn't hard or difficult or demanding because you're a lazy loser. You're not a lazy loser. You're just being asked for higher output. The demands are higher. You know what? We can do it. We can do it because the weasel was white. Because the weasel was white, we can live another day. Winter is coming. Thank you. Finally. And I know most of you are like, this is more depressing news. Thank you, Julie. The weasel being white means winter is coming, and I hate winter. I understand, but you can be happy for me. What about that? What if you're just happy for me today? Me and the weasel, okay? Winter is coming. Love you so much. Bye.